Well, it's so lovely to see everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm hoping that if you're here, you're interested in getting started with Jira, because that's what this online training session is all about. My name's Anna Bromley, and I run a company called Agile Project Delivery. Um, this is going to be a bit of a lecture style format because we've only got half an hour. And at the end, I'll leave room for some questions as well. So if you do have any questions throughout, then just pop them in the chat and I'll answer them at the end. Okay, so let's go. So yeah, as I said, I'm Anna. I've been working as a project manager for about 10 or 12 years now, basically. I've been contracting in London, working for large companies, managing transformation projects. I've been using Jira on an almost daily basis for over 8 years now or so. So I'm very well aware of the benefits and also the limitations of the tool. And I wanted to put this together because I think it can seem quite scary at first when you're not familiar with it, but actually it's relatively simple once you've grasped a few key concepts. And I also put together online courses in the area of Agile, Scrum, and project management. And you can have a look at those both on my website and also on Udemy as well. So that is me. So yeah, this is the agenda. We're just going to touch on what Jira is. Then we're going to talk about 6 or 7 key concepts. So like my main message leaving this workshop is that there's 6 or 7 key things that if you are familiar with, then you'll be able to get started quite easily with Jira, and you shouldn't have an issue. So starting with what Jira is, so I didn't know this until recently, but Jira actually comes from the name Jira, which is Japanese for Godzilla. Jira was started in 2002. It was an issue tracking tool, and it's grown into like a workplace management tool. I'm just going to mute Ezzy there. There you go. Just a little bit of noise there. Let me minimize you. Yeah, so yeah, it comes in different solutions. So there's basic, there's premium, and then there's Jira Align, which is for enterprise size companies. So you can sign up for free on a 30-day free trial, and you can have a look at the functionality. You don't need to enter your credit details. So you've got like a playground that you can have a trial on. And it was largely developed for software, but now it's ubiquitous sort of across business, and researchers use it, marketers use it, and like hundreds of thousands of companies, global companies use it. So it's a tool that's well worth investing half an hour in if you're in this industry, just to take a look at. So without further ado, let's get started on the 6 or 7 key things that you need to know about for Jira success, basically. So what I did was I went to the Jira Premium link there, and I sent a link to most people out this morning if you wanted to follow along. So I literally just copied that link there, put my details in, and then signed up. And then it would have taken you, if you're following along, to a screen like this. So this is where I'm going to pick up the training for the day, basically for this half an hour anyway. And I just pressed continue here. And then I'm just going to flick over to the next screen. Again, shout if you can't see this other screen. And you'll basically get given a page that looks a little bit like this. So it's a little bit bare at the moment. And this is what I'm going to talk you through step by step. So I suppose the first thing that you would need to do is actually create a project. So you can do that in a couple of places. You can go to projects from the bar up here, or I'm just going to press create project. Then it's going to take you to different templates. So as I mentioned, there's so many use cases for Jira, and they've got lots of different variations. The projects I manage mostly are usually in a Scrum sense, and they're predominantly technology or business change projects. And so we run in an agile way using sprints, which is what you would use the Scrum methodology for. So you can see down the left hand side here, there's lots of different templates, and familiarize yourself with those. But for the purpose of this guided training, I'm just going to be selecting the Scrum template, because it's the one that I use the most, and I think is sort of what Jira really shines at, to be honest. So I'm just going to use this template. Then it takes you to a screen that says team managed and company managed. I'm, for the purpose of this session, going to select team managed, because I don't have a large organization that wants to centrally manage, all of the different setup features within Jira. So for most people, for one-man bands or small teams and projects, not in large enterprise size companies, then you would go ahead and select the team one. I'm just going to put a test in here for the project name. So training project 3, I'm going to put, it's going to generate a key automatically. I'm going to set this to private, because I'm going to show you how to add a user as well. And then it just gives you an indication of what you've selected here. So you've selected a Scrum board, and it's a team managed board. And then you just go ahead and select create project. So then it's going to work its magic. It takes a second or two just to generate. And I'm going to zoom in a bit, I think. That's got a large screen. Yes, so this is the point where it's like, right, okay, what is this? So let me just break it down for you. So over here on the left hand side, you've got the sidebar. You've got the summary, which is a view of some of the key metrics and bits of information, and we'll talk a little bit around this in more detail in a minute. So that's kind of useful. And then you've got the timeline. So timelines are where you simply plot out your high level phases or activities, otherwise known as epics in Jira language. And then you can also plot down the timeline and also link connecting tasks as well, which is mapping the dependencies, basically. Again, I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but that's quite an important section there to be aware of in the sidebar. Then we've got the backlog, which again is another important one to be aware of. This is where you would jot down the low level tasks and also stories. So stories are distinct pieces of user functionality, often written as a user. I want to be able to do this so that I can then do that. That's sort of typically how they're written. So you can see that there's different issue types here. Bug story, and the blue one is a task. So you'll see here that you've got both a backlog section, and then you've also got a sprint. So because I chose that Scrum template, it's going to automatically assume that we're going to be running in sprints. And so I will give you an example of creating a few issues for our backlog, and then also bringing them into the sprint, and then actually starting a sprint as well, so you can see how that process works. But just to go on with the sidebar, you've then got the board, which is again a very important part of Jira. So this is where you'll have the Kanban, which is basically just the different columns to do, in progress, and done, that you will then move your issues through the delivery life cycle. And I'm actually going to show you in one of the sections how we would customize our delivery workflow slightly, because I believe that's an important thing to know about when you're starting with Jira, because quite often this simple delivery cycle won't be fit for purpose for most people on most projects beyond the very simplest one. So I'm also going to talk more about that. The calendar, I don't find that useful or that important for me personally, but it's there. I also don't really use lists, forms, goals, or issues that much personally either. So really and truly, with the sidebar, the most important bits to know about are the timeline, the backlog, and the board. That's from my own personal experience. A lot of what else is here in the main you can sort of largely ignore. So that's that. One key thing to note is the fact that sometimes when you start on Jira, not everything is available. So what you'll want to do is go to the project settings, which is down below here in the sidebar. Then you want to go to features, and you'll see that some of these toggles are on or automatically switched off. So I wanted to bring this up because it's worth noting that I find reports are very important for measuring and tracking your progress. And then I also use this concept called releases quite a lot as well. So releases are just a way of allowing you to group different tasks together that will be released at specific dates. So this originally comes from the idea that in software delivery, you would, if you would have a bug, if you would have an issue with your system, for example, you would do a bug fix, and then that version, that fix would then go into a fixed version, and then that would then be released into production. So there's just a little bit of background about what the releases actually means or came from. But really, it's just a group of tasks that's getting delivered roughly at the same time, and you can group them like that. So I'm also going to turn that one on as well. So what that means is if you go back, you'll now see that we've got releases popping up here. And then you can create these versions or releases. They're the same thing, and then you can then tie them actually to issues. And then we should also have reports here as well. So we've got the burn up report, the burn down chart, velocity report, cumulative flow diagram, and these are the four that are usually the most useful in my experience. But you'll see there, these are awaiting a sprint. So you can't select these until you've got data actually in Jira itself. So let me go on to the timeline and just show you a little bit about how this works. So as an example, say I wanted to market a product and I was going to be launching something. I would do some research. I will add that as an epic. I will just press enter, and it will just enter it in like that. It will give it a little unique number, and you'll get some details come up over here. So what you can also do at this point is add child issues, which are effectively subtasks. Those child issues would actually then go into your backlog, because it's only at the epic level that you see on your timeline. All of the child issues go into the backlog itself. So if I create another one, and I'll put design here because that will be the next phase or epic in my project. And then what I can do with this is add a connection, which is a linked issue. And I can say it's blocked by, but you've got lots of options there. And I can say it's blocked by, and I've only got one epic at the moment. So I'm just going to link that together. So now I've built that connection, but we don't actually have any timings in there at the moment. So let me go ahead and just add a timing. So you can see that it automatically just predicts what I want to do when I just hover my mouse over there. So you can just drop in the time in that manner, or you can go directly onto the issue detail page, and you can update the start date and due date as well. So that if I was to update that, then that would also extend out or move backwards. So I'm just going to drop that in there. That's fine. Then for the design, I'm going to say that starts there because I added this dependency, and you can see now that I've added the date in, it's actually drawn a line there to show that it's blocked by the design can't start until the research is finished. I'm going to stretch that out a little bit. Some other things to note about the timeline is that you can look down here and you can change the setup. You can change it to weeks, you can change it to months, you can change it to quarters. And it's just a really nice quick visual to be able to look at, at a glance. And you can also, once you've started to update other details as well, for example, the status, you can also then begin to filter as well by status. There's loads more that I could go into detail about here, but I'm just trying to keep this like a really practical get set up type session. So really and truly, like that is as simple as it is. Like that is the timeline. So then moving on to the backlog. So as I mentioned, this is where we write down our specific tasks that we need to do. So if I think back to my project, which is about launching a product, and I know I need to do some research. So the first thing I am going to do when I think about what I need to do within that researching phase is investigate target users. So I'm going to write that down. I'm going to spell that properly. Target users. So there we go. I have my first task here. So again, very similar to the Epic. It's just created it right away, and you can see that in the issue detail panel on the right hand side, we've got a few key details that have come up here that I can populate. So parent is one where I can connect it to the actual Epic itself. So I'm just going to connect that one to Epic. You also notice as well that we've got this little line here and this little person here as well. So it's always good to size your activities. Jira will naturally assume that you want to size in story points if you select the Kanban Scrum project template, but you can change this by going to the project settings down here, and you can get it to size in hours or days as well. Story points are based on the Fibonacci sequence. I can't go into loads of detail about that during this session, but basically it's just relative sizing based on Fibonacci, which is a mathematical sequence. So I think this is a relatively simple task, so I'm just going to give it a story point of 1. So I updated the issue detail, and then it just updated it there in the summary. I'm also going to assign this task. I've only got myself in this Jira project at the moment, so I'm just going to assign it to me, and then it's going to come up with my name. You can also change your icon as well, and to change your icon, you go up here into your personal Jira settings. But again, I don't think that's much of a high priority. So yeah, that's just an FYI for information. So yeah, let me just go ahead and create another different type of task here. So say, for example, I want to create a story. I'm just trying to think of a story that I can create on the top of my head. So as a user, I'm imagining that I'm going to be building a mobile application. I'll say I want to log in with my face only, so that I don't need to log in with a password, something like that. So that's an example of the structure of a user story. Now, I didn't actually generate a build epic at this moment in time for that, because I think I just did research and then I did design. So I can actually oh no, I can't go ahead and generate an epic there directly. But what I can do if I'm on this screen in particular is I can just go ahead and create one directly from this create issue page here. So I can put here build mobile application, and I won't fill in any of the information just to save a little bit of time at this moment in time. But then I can add that whilst I realize I haven't created it, and then you can see it pop up there, so I can add that in as well. So that's some of the key things to note about the backlog. I have directly scheduled these into the sprint, but if I want to just tackle one of these tasks, I will just obviously move that down into the backlog. And then now I have got a piece of work actually created, for the purpose of demonstration, I'll just show you how simple it is to start the sprint. So again, it's going to assume that a sprint is 2 weeks time, and then if you just put that, then it's going to predict the end date. It's always good practice to write a sprint goal. So I'll put close out research tasks as my sprint goal, so everyone knows exactly what they're aiming for. And so now we've gone ahead and started the sprint, you can see that the board has actually now got an active task in it, so that you can move it around in your delivery workflow. So now that we've done that, let me move quickly onto the board. So I said that I wanted to show you how to customize the workflow and also add columns, which I feel is important. So to do that, you go to the 3 dots here, you go to configure board. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a blocked column. So I want to indicate that that in our delivery workflow, if something is blocked specifically, so it might be in progress technically, but we're actually a bit blocked. So I want that to be highlighted for me. So it's really as simple as that, to add a column into your workflow. So it's not updated yet because it's given an error. It's basically said, oh, it just leave it. Right, yeah, sorry, I need to do the workflow first. So anyway, let me just discard that. So what I need to do is update the workflow first. So what the workflow is it's just connected again to the columns. So Jira gives you incredibly simple workflow, and it's, as I was mentioning at the beginning, it's often not really appropriate. So if I flick back to my presentation, I've given you a couple of examples of other types of workflows. This is one that I found online for a blog. So for example, you do some research, you put it into to do, you draft it, you review it, you load it, you schedule it. That's kind of a blog workflow. This is another sort of standard workflow that Jira proposes, which is just a little bit more advanced than the one that they give automatically. Like, this is probably the most key thing if you're setting up a Jira from scratch that you'll need to think about. So in my example here, just to show you how this works, I just wanted to add a blocked column and a blocked status. So in Jira, there's 3 different high-level stages. There's to do, there's in progress, and done. And that doesn't change even if you add 10 more columns and 100 more statuses. So you still have to put the status in one of those broader categories. So if I want to add a new one for blocked, I will actually not make it in progress. I will do in to do. So I'll just create blocked, then add that. And then it's as simple as that, really. Just adding a status that says blocked. I can move this a little bit around so that it makes a little bit more sense. And I can also add in transitions as well. So you can see here where it says any, it means that any task can move between any of these stages to one another. If you put a transition in, it means that it's going to restrict the movement of tasks through the delivery workflow. I would just caution from experience about making this too restrictive, because there's so many different examples in real life where something will be in progress, then it will go back to do, and then it will get done, and all of a sudden, and then it might get blocked. So I really wouldn't try too hard to predict all of the transitions that could happen, which is why I kind of usually like to keep it simple. But I'll share this recording and this presentation after, so you can have a little bit more of a closer look. But yeah, so basically we've created our stage now, which is good. So if I go ahead and update that workflow, all this means is for the various issue types, that's going to apply to tasks that are in blocked. So just go ahead with that, save and continue. So now you see that I have my blocked stage over here, and it's automatically remembered that I wanted to create a blocked column as well. So it's just popped it directly in that. I actually want to move that over here because I want that to be sort of more on the to-do side of things rather than the done side of things. And that is basically all it takes to update your workflow. You can add as many stages in as you like, but you just need to make sure they're mapped to a particular column. So if I press save changes there, and if I close that and go back to my project, you'll see that we now have the option to move it into to blocked. And then on the actual issue detail itself, if I open this, yes, here it is. It's actually in the block status. So if I was to move it to in progress, it just goes directly to that column. And then you can see that the other options then come up as well. So that is the delivery workflow. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is just adding users. So now that you've got your project set up, you've got your delivery workflow, you've written some tasks in, you're going to want to distribute access. So all you do here is go to project settings, then access, and then add people. And so then you just add their names in, and then they'll get an email, and then they should be able to log in. You can also change their access levels as well. So let me just pop back. That, I think, yes, that brings me to the end of what I wanted to run through. So if I just go back to my agenda, I just want to do a very quick recap. So in a nutshell, you only need to know 6 or 7 things to get ahead with Jira. So the sidebar, which we looked at, the timeline, you need to turn features on if they're not on already. You can do that via the project settings. The board and the backlog, it's important to add your issues and tasks and stories to the backlog, and it's important to set your board up in a way that works for you and your team. You'd need to configure your workflow. There's lots of example templates of that online. And then also you'll need to give people access as well via the project settings. And that is all there is to it, really. I've run over a couple of minutes, so we've only got 3 minutes until the end. But does anyone have any questions? I'll open it up to the floor now. Let's have a look. Do the forms are not so important? Yes. The forms are important, and then I'm just thinking about what Eze said. The forms are really important, and they are really good. So you can, if I just share my screen now, what one was it? That one? No, am I sharing the wrong one? That one. If I go back there and go to forms, look, they give you some templates here. So for example, as a use case, say you're in an organization and they're doing some testing on your system. If you create this bug report here and they give you, they kind of automate it for you, and then preview it. What you can then do is you can put this URL, say you use Confluence or say you use another, workplace tool. The users don't actually need to access Jira at all. All they can say is task to complete or not working. All they can just put it in, they can put their description in here and then submit their screenshots as well. So it is useful. It is very good. It's not something that I'm typically using all the time. So if I go back to my backlog, you can see here that it's just logged something directly onto the backlog. I mean, you can also set up automations as well, so that automatically assigns to people and all things like that. But I don't have the time to go through that today. But I'm hoping that was helpful. Yeah, it probably could. Yeah, I think forms probably could be used to get approvals during project lifecycle. That's a really good use case, actually. Yeah, that would need a little bit of thinking about, but it's a good possibly. Is there a log of who went moved a ticket? Yes, there is. That's another really good thing about Jira. So again, let me share. So if I go on to the issue and let me open it up, it'll probably be easier. You've got here, and this is why it's sort of better than using like a spreadsheet or something like that for work tracking. You've got history, and then you've got a work log as well. So people track their time against the task, you can see, and then you've got comments as well. So yeah, it's really good from an audit perspective. How can we effectively customize Jira to align with our specific project management needs, such as tracking milestones, dependencies, and stakeholder updates? That's quite a broad question. It's a very broad question, that one. It requires analysis of what the business actually needs. You'd need to get more into detail than was the scope of this call to customize it from like a more of an admin perspective or like a configuration perspective. Like you can change all of the screens that you saw there, like when you create an issue. All of that can be totally customized. You can add fields, you can remove fields, you can reorder things, you can change the workflow, but you need to identify what your needs are first before then creating and customizing Jira to be appropriate. Um, Also, when it comes to tracking milestones, you can also use fixed versions or the releases that I touched upon for that purpose. You'd also probably be looking more at the premium and align features um, that I've not gone into today, and I've not even got added to the version of Jira that I was showing you. But if you want to do more advanced program management style things, which it looks like you're talking about, the advanced planning in Jira is probably more appropriate for that, I would say. But very good question. Thank you so much. And it was wonderful to have everyone here. I see one more person is typing. So if that's a question, I'll answer that. And then if not, I will let everyone get back to their day and I'll circulate the recording and then the details afterwards. Can multiple project timelines be pulled into a joint calendar? Yes. Again, we're now going into the realms of like Jira Align and advanced Jira planning tools, which wasn't really the scope of this conversation. But yes, you can set up teams in Jira. You can then put them on a more like a program view, program level view, and bring things into the same view. But that's definitely one for another day. Lovely. Okay. Well, it was short but sweet, but I hope you got something out of it. And yes, cool. Well, great. Go onto my website and have a look and reach out to me. I'll be happy to speak to you. Uh, for anyone who wants to be a project manager. Thanks, everyone. All the best.